One of the victims of the N1 highway attack are planning to sue the police over the incident. It's after officers attached to Deputy President Paul Mashatile were filmed hitting several men. Well, let's find out more about the civil action from one of the lawyers representing a victim, Daniel Eloff. Daniel, good evening to you. Thanks for your time. Firstly, tell us about what your client has said to you about that incident. Of course, there's now been some time to reflect on what has happened and also take in just the opinions of others, including the outrage that we've seen.
Yes, I mean, so far it's been a gruesome picture that my client's painted, and almost even more regrettable has been the reaction not only by the South African Police Service and by senior government and political figures, but also by my client's own employer, the South African National Defence Force, who've been rather hesitant to support him in his time of need and after going through this very traumatic experience. But yes, I mean, Mr. Fisher is recovering and he's doing well and better, and I must admit that he's very tough. But it's a very traumatic thing that he's gone through, and I think the emotional trauma is going to be with him for quite a considerable time, and hence why I believe there's a need for him to hold the people who are responsible and the Minister of Police to account.
It's interesting, Daniel, because one of the things I've seen is a suggestion that the South African Defence Force, and of course many of these individuals, at least these three men, are understood to be SANDF trainees, that the Defence Force has said that they cannot make public statements on this issue, and they've effectively been gagged from speaking about the incident. Is that correct?
Yes, and in fact, I have first-hand knowledge of that. I spoke to a senior official within the military who said to me point blankly that he's given an order, he's unwilling to provide reasons for the order he's given, and that if we're unhappy with what he said, then we can go to court. Obviously, my advice to my client is he's free to speak to any media person and bring to light what happened to him. The point is the incident and the violent assault that he suffered happened over a weekend while they were not on duty. It didn't happen on military premises. And what he does in his free time, after work hours and off of military premises, he's free to do. And no person in the army can gag him from doing so. But the fact that he believes he's able to do so, I think, says quite a lot. I think the very same, drunkenness on power that the police, the members of the VIP unit are victims of, or not victims, but they suffer from it, unfortunately seems to be the case also in the South African National Defence Force. It's just people who I believe act from a position of power and therefore arrogance. And in fact, I can share this one story that one of the senior members of the military who met with Ian Cameron of Action Society literally said to them, well, he started laughing. He just said, well, this is hilarious to him what happened to our client, which it's just such a horrible thing, and you can't believe what's being said about the incident.
It must be surprising, Daniel, to see the sympathy that has been extended towards these men, the outrage as a result of what they've been put through, not only from South Africans, but including the international community, people who've seen this video that has gone viral globally, and then not have support from their employer. Yeah. How does that make your client feel?
No, I mean, it's absolutely atrocious. You'd expect them to jump in to protect him, to offer him trauma counseling, to offer them all trauma counseling, but unfortunately that's not what's happening. But I think you're quite right, and I must have said this is the first time in an interview where someone's pointed that out, just the complete and overwhelming support from the public has been wonderful to see. And I'd argue the reason for that is South Africans all over the country suffer from similar conduct, not necessarily being violently assaulted, but by this prevalent sense of arrogance that many people have in leadership positions, where they simply don't care about the plight of the everyday South African. And I think that's why many South Africans are able to emphasize with what Mr. Fisher and the other three occupants of the vehicle went through is it's almost as if that's the experience and daily experience of many South Africans, and why there's been this overwhelming wave of support for them.
Is there any threat at this point to your client's position as a trainee in the SANDF? as a result of, number one, the fact that despite the warnings to not speak to the media, they of course are speaking to the media through their lawyers at the very least, and the fact that they've also gotten lawyered up may also be found to be problematic from an employer that clearly has not been supportive.
Yes, there are no threats at this stage, I must admit, and I think it's because of all the public focus that's been on this case. You know, there are many similar situations happen all over the country where you don't have this focus of the media and you don't have civil society all, rallying up to support people, where I think these sort of things potentially happen. But luckily in this case, it's not the case that's happening. I also highly doubt that they will take any steps against them. It would be foolish for them to do so. That would probably be the easiest labor law case in your life that you'd be able to deal with. I've also been in contact with my client's union, the South African National Defence Union, who are ready to step in should they take any steps against them which are unlawful, such as dismissing them for the fact that they're just speaking their truth and just exercising their constitutional right to freedom of expression.
Let's talk about the next steps for you and your client. You want to sue the police?
Yes, so that's the one step we're busy with, and I think I should just highlight that there are sort of three processes going on at the moment. The one being issuing summons against the Minister of Police, against the individuals that were involved. They were obviously acting within the course and scope of their employment as police officers. So our law says that you then need to issue summons against the person responsible, that being the Minister of Police. So that's the civil route that's being taken. Then there's obviously the complaint that's been lodged with IPID, who are investigating the misconduct by the members of the police service. And then thirdly, there are criminal charges that have been laid against the members of the police service themselves, which also needs to be investigated. So that's the criminal proceedings that are proceeding. And you hope that through a combination of all three of these avenues that are being pursued, that justice not only for the victims are achieved, but that a broader sense of justice is achieved, that, it's highlighted to such an extent that we really start having a conversation as a society about the increasing police brutality that we're seeing year on year. It seems to me every single year, these sort of incidents just become more prevalent, more violent, and more atrocious.
And you bring me to my next point, Daniel, and that's really around the fact that we rarely see strong action taken against officers who are responsible for this brutality you're speaking about. What makes you believe things will be different this time around?
Well, one would hope that the public focus on it makes it different. And then you should also just highlight the fact that if you speak to any general litigation attorney, they tell you that our courts are filled with claims against the police for unlawful arrests, unlawful detention, and misconduct by police members. In fact, a couple of years ago, we did a request for access to information regarding another client, and we asked the various provincial departments, or provincial heads of police, what amounts of compensation do you pay out annually to members who sue the Minister of Police for unlawful arrest, unlawful detention? And the amount was staggering. It's in the hundreds of millions of rand of taxpayer money that every year is spent to compensate for the victims of police brutality. And one would hope that, this becomes such a discussion point in our politics and in civil society that change, really starts happening. But I guess it's rather difficult to start having a conversation about police brutality when your police still remain so ineffective, where, South Africans, their daily lives, they're threatened because the police can't fulfill their very simple and straightforward constitutional mandate of protecting our communities.
Daniel Eloff, we'll leave it there for tonight. Thanks for your time. Daniel Eloff is representing one of the victims of that N1 attack by VIP officials. This is against just 3 ordinary civilians.